Welcome to The Right Advice. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber. And today we are going to be looking at the show Fairview, which I believe is on Comedy Central. And we're trying to determine if it is worse than Velma. So we've watched one episode each. What do you think, Randy?
No, I'm not going to say until the very end of the show.
Yeah, I like that.
But I will say that this is a horribly atrocious show, and that there's a good reason why it has a rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It does rank lower than Velma currently at this point.
So for me, I totally understand the rating that they gave it as well, and I gotta say I'm right there with them, So
yeah, I'm glad I don't have to watch a second episode for review purposes.
I would say if you wanted to torture somebody, drive them mad, set them in front of this show.
All right, well, the summary is that we have the cast, and they want to throw a Super Bowl party, but COVID is going on. And so initially they have to convince the mayor to allow them to throw the Super Bowl party. And then there are a couple lines that I do think are funny. And one is about and I don't have my notes because this is the second time we've had to record this. We lost the first one, and then I deleted my notes afterwards.
Yeah, because you wanted to expunge this from your memory forever. It was so bad.
So I just remembered that there was a line that talked about death being acceptable, a Super Bowl party, and it was sports, and it was okay if people died at a party. And the way they portrayed it, actually, I did kind of get a chuckle out of it.
For me, so basically they've got the mayor who wants to have all these COVID restrictions on the party, and they're like, oh, come on, you used to be such a party animal, and now you're, a party pooper. And so she's like, they're going to help her remember that she's a party animal, and then she's going to try and prove that she's not, a party pooper. And it's kind of a generic story, and the humor is all centered around how people handle COVID, basically. So I had numerous complaints about just the audio quality, the auditory experience of listening to this show, because every single line from every single character is shouted. And whatever audio equipment they're using in their studio to record the actors that are doing these voices, it's really terrible equipment, or they're not doing a good job in post to clean it up. I mean, we have better sound than they do. And that's not saying a lot because we're really struggling with our sound in a lot of our episodes. But somehow they got funding to be on Comedy Central with this crappier sound than we have. So yeah, I had big problems with the shouting every line. Every character shouts every line. And the audio quality. It was terrible. So that's my first complaint. I have a long list of complaints, and I managed to keep my notes, but yeah, that was the first big one. Now,
there are a couple of things that I did like about it, and I wasn't as bothered by the shouting as you were. I've had 9 kids. I mean, I didn't have them. You know what I mean? My wife and I had 9 kids. So the shouting thing, I can kind of tune that out to a point, so it didn't bother me as much. And there were a couple of things that I did like. So these characters are animated like weebles, and I don't know if everyone knows what weebles are, but they are toys.
Like an egg on top of an egg, basically.
It's basically their bodies were just little balls, and they had the heads and whatever, and they would weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. So they were weebles, and that was kind of a funny animation choice, and I liked it. I thought that was amusing. So that was one thing. And then the story, it goes from there, right? So they do convince the mayor that we're going to have a party, and they do. They go about it, and there's events leading up to the party, including the main character's son getting vaccinated, and they mock the son for getting vaccinated because he wants to have
He has a friend who has a compromised immune system, and he's like, oh, I got it because, my friend has a compromised immune system, and I want it to be safe for him. And they're like offended that he has gone and gotten a vaccine, and they're going to train him now how to be, I can't remember what the exact phrase was, but they said
total idiot and total effing something idiot, right?
Yeah, it was 4 words and yeah, something effing idiot. Yeah. It was stupid. So now the son goes on this, like, he's an apprentice to the top a-hole in the city or in the town, and he's also the mortician or something. No, not the mortician. He owns the mortuary, and he's gonna show him how to be this a-hole, and they're gonna go poop on people. That was how he's going to train him to be an asshole. Is we're going to go poop on people.
And was it funny? No.
No, not funny at all.
Not at all. Was it disturbing, disgusting, and childish?
Yeah, and there was a lot of that childish humor. Like, there's a scene in the beginning where the mortician guy is going like, hey, you guys are sick, and they're like, well, we're sure that you have no problem with throwing a COVID party because you own the mortuary and, or the funeral home, and it's going to be a lot of business for you. And he's like, that's not it at all. How dare you think that way? And then a woman gets hit by a car right there, and her mangled, bloody body with like bones sticking out and, exposed skull. He goes up to it and he's like sniffing it and going, yummy, yummy, I'm so happy. Money, money, money. Yes, I'm so happy. And then he'll shout over, he's like, you guys have problems or you're sick. And it was gross and it wasn't funny.
It was gross and disturbing and totally. So they do eventually, so they work through all those, like, we have problems. You guys shouldn't throw this party because people will die. They throw the party. I don't know that they actually
They get sick.
They get sick.
A bunch of them get sick. But yeah, their party is like the death party, dance party, death party, like COVID party, death party.
So then they're going to throw an after party. They're going to throw a dance, death, COVID party afterwards, right? And because the first party was so successful, they're going to do it again. So that's the basic story behind the episode that we watched.
Honestly, the story is not important at all to this show.
However, comparing it to Velma, though, it did have a story. As stupid and immature and gross as it was, it did have a story.
Yeah, and events happened in the story in the first episode, whereas the first episode of Velma, not so much. They established that there was a mystery, and there were some other scenes, and at the end, you still knew there was a mystery.
Right. Yeah. So this one had a story. So the events that happened throughout the episode were related to that story and moved forward. It resolved. Was it a really stupid story? Was it a disgusting story? Yes. Mm-hmm. Was it worth watching? No, not at all. But keep in mind what we're comparing it to.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I'd say that they did that was better than Velma was, instead of the focus being hate and, we're just angry at everybody, it was everybody's stupid. It was kind of like they're trying to take the stupid stereotypes of people's thought processes during COVID. And I could see that they tried to do both sides, but it just wasn't very funny. I don't know.
Well, they took both sides and they were willing to, and that's something that I'm not sure that with Velma we're applauding that ability. I mean, Velma does seem to hate everyone.
Everybody, yeah.
I mean, so it does hit both sides, but at least this one, I don't know, it did feel like humor. Yeah. It definitely felt like they were making jokes that they thought were funny. And it wasn't about hate. And not all of the characters they hated everyone. I mean, were they ridiculous characters that did stupid things? Yes. But were they characters that you immediately loathed because there was no quality?
No, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, that wasn't the case. So definitely not. And then another thing compared to Velma, in my mind, Velma doesn't really seem to know its audience. Who is Velma for? I mean, obviously, it's not for Scooby-Doo fans, right? Because all they did is make fun of the fans, and they made fun of the original show, and they changed everything.
It wasn't even that they made fun of them. It's that they insulted them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're terrible. You're terrible people.
We're looking down on you. Yeah. You're horrible scum, and you should be shamed for having enjoyed a cartoon.
Yeah.
All right. So that's how you feel when you watch Velma. Now, with this, and they do that on both sides. I mean, they just hate everybody.
Yeah.
On this, there is obviously a market. There's a group that they were targeting who may find this funny. While I did not find most of it, I'm sure there were a couple things that I did find funny. I'll try to remember one in a moment.
I've got one.
Okay.
It was when they go to the factory. So they go to the factory where I don't remember what the heck's being made, but the workers there are complaining that their boss is such a tyrant that he's going to dock your vacation time for the times that you blink. And so they just have an aside where you see one of the employees blink and you hear the boss go, "Welcome back." And that was the only joke that I kind of chuckled at.
Okay, but it was funny.
Yeah, but it was funny.
All right. Now, the one I remember is the main character has a son. The wife goes and picks him up. He's hanging out with his friend on a trash heap or something, right?
It was the COVID death pit or whatever.
Yeah,
they dump all the dead bodies.
All
from
the
COVID.
dead bodies are piled
the
up
COVID
there.
pit.
Which is,
so
okay, you know what? It makes me laugh right now. It's a little bit funny.
Yeah.
But
Watching
she's like, "What? You got a vaccine? Get in the car, Billy," or whatever his name is. And the friend's like, "Bye, Billy. Sorry, your mom's a psycho queen." And the mom yells like, "Hey, just shut up. Don't try to suck up to me." Okay, you know what? I laughed at that. That was funny.
Yeah, I would say this, that out of not watching the show, thinking about these things, they're funny. But I did not think it was funny watching it because I was so annoyed by the sound. And also the delivery of the lines was not, there's no sense of comedic timing. It was just rushing through all of these lines as quickly as they could. And yeah, it was hard to watch and enjoy in the moment. But you think about the concept itself, the content itself out of context is funny.
Okay, but I did laugh, especially at that. Sorry, your mom's a psycho queen. All right, I did actually laugh at that one. So there are jokes. They are easily recognizable as jokes. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, most of those jokes are really targeted against people who might not think that COVID was going to kill everyone, or they didn't want to take the vaccine, or whatever. I mean, so this is obviously a very politically divisive thing. Mm-hmm. And we can see that the humor was for one side of that argument and targeted against the other side because they are total effing something idiots, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the other side being targeted are like, they are so glad to be that. It's kind of like the rednecks who are very happy to be rednecks, and you can make fun of them for being rednecks and it doesn't bother them. So this thing, it's like a badge of honor, which is not realistic. However, if you're on that other side of the political spectrum, you're going to find that amusing because that's what you're thinking. They are total effing whatever idiots.
Yeah.
And you're going to be happy that they're calling them that. So at least they've got they've got a target audience. Half the people will agree that those other people are idiots and they will find it fun. I think they will find it funny. And
you know what? I was reminded a lot watching this show of South Park. And you can tell that they were trying to go for South Park because it's such a simplistic animation style. But there's a few things that South Park does that does much better that this show just doesn't do. Now, South Park focuses on their stories. And they tell good stories that are funny situations. It's not just about the jokes that are in the dialogue. And I feel like this was all about the jokes in the dialogue. And they weren't delivered with any emoting or there was no range. Like there was zero counterpointing in this where you had, this is anger and this is, not anger. And this is, celebrating and funny. And this is, relaxing. And there's no up and down with the mood to give you like, okay, we have a break from the comedy to see this sentimental moment and then something funny happens. That is what helps comedy get delivered. Now, South Park does that. They actually manage to throw in sentimental moments, even though they're cheap and we're all kind of like, we know that this is set up for a joke, but it works and we enjoy it. Right. Another thing that they do, that simplistic animation.
And we've talked about it on the show before. Yeah. No matter what you're writing, you need a counterpoint.
Yes.
Because if you stay on one emotional note, it will not be satisfying to people. Yeah. There is no one note that you can watch constantly through a show or read through a book that you're going to be like, oh, that was so awesome. Yeah. No, you need that fluctuation of emotions and everything. So it is very important. And you're right. This was more that one note.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of tiring. I imagine even those who are on the side not being made fun of, I'm sure that they kind of after a while go like, I don't know, this is kind of boring.
So another thing that was similar to South Park, and I think I just barely mentioned it, was the animation style. It was very, very simplistic. You can also hear the twangy guitar, when they do scene transitions, just like South Park. But here's the thing. South Park, despite being simplistic animation, they managed to have facial expressions that affect the comedy of the joke. I mean, I've heard plenty of comedians deliver, their little bits, and I'm like, that's mildly funny. But then I'll see somebody draw like really terrible stick figures to it with great facial expressions, and it's suddenly funny to me. South Park utilizes what you see visually as part of the comedy. Now with this, they had 0 facial expressions. It was literally just a face like this with a mouth going like that. The face never changes. No matter what the scenario was, their face never changed. The tone of their voice never changed. It was just bland. So they didn't do that. They didn't have the story with the counterpoints or the contrast in the type of mood that you're supposed to be feeling. So I felt like this was an attempt to be another South Park, like a really hard attempt to be another South Park, and it just did not come anywhere close. So,
yeah, I think South Park were their idols, and that's what they were aspiring to, and they didn't pull it off.
I don't think they understood what made South Park, so what makes South Park still funny, because it's on, what is it, season 22 or something like that?
Yeah, not my kind of show.
Yeah, I just watched the episode with Meghan Markle, where they make fun of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, and oh my
they
gosh,
hate so much.
That's so hilarious. I have to admit, that was... I don't watch South Park very often, but my brother came in one day and he's like, you guys, you have to watch this. And we did. And oh boy, it was a good one. So it was exactly what I could see ticking off Meghan and Harry.
I just love that they got so upset. I mean, they're always in the spotlight and everything. And now they're upset because they didn't like the way South Park.
That was one of the gags, was that wherever Meghan and Harry go, they're carrying around signs like, we want our privacy, like, stop looking at us. Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
See, that is funny.
It's hilarious. Oh my gosh. And like they move in next to, I forget which one of the guys it is in the South Park. They move in next to one of the guys, one of the South Park kids, and they're annoyed that he decides to ignore them. So they're like banging on his door like, hey, stop looking at us. Like, they're annoyed that he's ignoring them. Oh my gosh, it's great. Just go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's if you haven't watched South Park in a while, but you know what's going on with Meghan and Harry, you'll get a good laugh out of it. It was good.
All right, that's all I have to say about it. I'm ready to go to whether it's better and give it a rating.
Okay. For me, I'm going to rate it. I'm actually going to say that it was worse than Velma, simply because it was so intolerable to listen to. At least in Velma, there was anger, but there were quiet moments where nobody was talking occasionally. There was a little bit of range like this. Yeah, most of what Velma herself said was angry, and the line delivery was decent in Velma. But in this, it was so intolerable to the ears physically that I have to rate it worse than Velma. So I don't care what the content was. If it's like listening to a Barney song on full blast right in your ears all day, I can't take it. Sorry. So worse than Velma. I say worse than Velma.
All right. And I disagree. So I gave Velma a 0.5. I'm going to give this a 1, which is better than Velma because it did have a story that I could follow. Not all the characters were completely loathsome, disgusting, vile things.
They were all just stupid.
They were just all stupid. But, there were a couple jokes that made me laugh. And I can see that they actually had a target market. So they were writing it for someone as opposed to let's just really upset everyone in the world and have everyone hate this. So it's, in my mind, infinitely better than Velma. And I'm not ever going to watch another show. It was horrible.
It was so bad. I'll never watch it.
It was so bad. I would never, ever watch another show.
You should not watch it. If you're thinking of watching it because of this review, no, don't. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, we don't want you scarred and damaged for life. Don't do it.
Unless you're punishing somebody in your family. No, you sit them down on the couch and be like, you have to sit here and watch this episode.
The Geneva Convention prohibits people from being tortured through forced viewing of this show, Fairview.
But we know that good moms and dads ignore the Geneva Convention.
No, she knows that. Don't force your kids to watch this. Don't force anyone.
Yeah, actually not appropriate for kids at all. But yeah, don't force anyone to watch this show.
Yeah, don't.
Just don't. Are we good?
I'm
I'm not rating the show. Because I didn't rate Velma because I didn't think it was worthy of even a 0.5. And this is, to me, it should never have been made. It should never even been. Nobody should even have proposed this show. It wouldn't even be a good web show. It would be on YouTube with 0 views. Except, no, 1 view from me and 1 from you. 2 views. Is that bad?
I mean, the rating is horrible. Mm-hmm. So, and we can see why.
Yeah. Are we good?
We're good.
Worse than Velma? You say
no,
and I say yes. So we're drawing a line down the middle on this one. All right. We'll see you next time. Later.
I'm going down to South Park, gonna have myself a time.
Friendly face.